Now, I hate to follow Mr. Mahbubani. So what I'm going to do is a sensible thing for me, and that is to hand over to our next panel. So fortunately, our next panel is almost as accomplished. Our panel on artificial intelligence and deep tech will deal with highly disruptive technologies that will soon put me out of a job. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Andy Lian, Advisory Board member of Hyundai DAC, as well as our panelists, Mr. Andrew Wu, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Meshbio Private Limited, Mr. Shriram Iyer, Chief Executive Officer and Founder of Prisma Global, and Mr. Stephen Ho, Group Chief Operating Officer of Skylab Group. Gentlemen, please.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I mean, many of us, including myself, this is probably the first face-to-face conference, ever since the pandemic started. We have relied a lot on technology. We have relied a lot on digital transformation that happens because of the COVID-19. So today we talk about how artificial intelligence, deep tech, deep learning is going to impact our businesses in China, in ASEAN, and how we see the future of such technology is going to impact on our daily lives. So today, I have only one panelist with me. Two other fellow panelists are actually online. I just got to say hi to them. I can see Andrew on the screen right now. So without further ado, let me just start off with a quick question, for Stephen here. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about many different kinds of aspects of things and so forth. But I would like to put in a quick question on how do you see new technology like 5G, is going to impact and do better with AI?
Thank you very much, Andy, for the question. So I think there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on and so forth, and data analytics. I think one of the key issue really is data availability, because if we look back in time, I think data analytics on its own has been around for a while. Artificial intelligence probably is a layer up where, having made sense of those data, you can then start to react to certain behaviors. But I think fundamentally the issue here now is data. How do we have good quality data? Because the last thing we want is to introduce biases into any form of artificial intelligence that we're thinking about. So I think good quality data is something that's very, very fundamental. And in the world of 5G, I think the promise really is the availability of a huge volume of data coming out from the edge, from sensors, from systems, from equipments. And now the question then becomes is, how do you make sure that you're collecting the right kind of data for 5G? And then can it be secured in the world of 5G? Because now you're generating a lot of data coming out from sources. And then having those data, then the next question is, how do you want to train your machines? How do you want to make them learn? So that at the end of the day, whatever insights or whatever algorithm that comes out of it that allows them to do what is known as artificial intelligence is probably the right one. And I think the danger, as in all things, humans, is let's not introduce biases into the AI itself, and then that creates a much bigger problem, because then there might not be anyone to check on it. Thank you.
That's very good remarks on how the data and the AI, can work together. Let's turn on to the Dr. Andrew Wu, who is online right now. Maybe a bit of a background, because as an investor myself, I do see that healthcare has been picking up. Investment in healthcare has been picking up during this period of time, especially. So my question for Dr. Andrew Wu would be, how can AI right now at this current stage increase productivity? How can AI help with the healthcare delivery in this current state of a pandemic? Andrew, please.
Hi, great to be here today. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm actually in the hospital on a family emergency, but glad I can still share my perspectives. Yeah, so thanks for the question. I think the real challenges around healthcare delivery stem from the increasing complexity, right? I think all of us know, or at least those of us who live in Singapore, that chronic disease is becoming an increasingly serious problem. That's largely due to the aging populations that we're starting to see in ASEAN. I think the WHO has actually projected that by 2050, more than 26% of our population in ASEAN is going to be aged, right, over 65, which means that the healthcare delivery, healthcare systems are going to get increasingly pressured. So how can we enable the diverse set of countries and the talents of our doctors to be better utilized to address these increasingly complex patient cases? So specifically, one key area that we see a growth in AI is in the area called clinical decision support, right, where powerful machines is able to make sense of data and help to give adjunctive guidance to the clinicians on all the possible scenarios that might be facing a patient, and perhaps even give suggestions on what might be the most suitable intervention. And allowing caregivers, doctors and nurses to focus on the most important part of care delivery, which is the human-to-human physician-patient interaction. And I think that's going to be the future of AI in healthcare, where technology sits with humans, right? Not to replace them, but as an assistive, adjunctive tool in care delivery.
All right. Maybe the next question will go to Sri, who is right now in India. Hi.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for calling me. Appreciate being here.
No problem. It's good to, because of, again, the virus, transform how the business are running right now. So my question for you for AI is that, we do see a lot of AI visual-based recognition platform that is going up online and going on the enterprise mode as well. How do you personally see such a platform is going ahead?
So what happens? What is visual-based platform is nothing but creating artificial intelligence-based learning on the recognitions towards spaces, objects, images, and and taking these data on, creating by cognitive and convolutive-based application on data, you start reacting, or the machine learning starts and takes decision based on that. So, for example, it may be sentiments, emotions of human beings with facial, or it may be even the simplest of number plate recognition in a car. That's the easiest to get into right now. But it could be also cognitive node onto a behavior in an autonomous car when the car now understands whether you are stressed or you're not stressed. So these kind of input that comes from visual-based parameters. Now, when I say visual-based parameters, are simply making all the cameras intelligent. So just getting these data from the camera inputs, referencing them to the database. Now these databases are convoluted or cognitive database, and then taking decision based on that. And these could be supervised with applications, so where it is there is a human interface also when it, or it can be post-human based. The machine learns by itself and takes decision over it. So that is where it comes. Platforms are coming in, and there are a few of them in the market right now. In China, SenseTime is one of the major known ones, which is known for its cognitive behavior-based digital application.
Thank you. I think when we talk about AI and so forth, it comes in many different forms, many different shapes. For myself, I would like to put in something more into this discussion. Whenever we talk about AI, some of the practitioners, even like myself, I often think about security. How security, plays a very big part in this whole AI era. There were a lot of hacking of brains, hacking into the different AI systems, or AI structure, and then another technology pops up, which is called the blockchain. Many of my friends in Singapore know me as a early adopter for blockchain technology. I spend most of my time talking about blockchain, talking about cryptocurrency, and I'm one of the first few who are very much pro-government, because I felt that government can help to advance this technology. You know, government can help to give us more insights and fundings. You know, so coming back to the word technology, security, and AI. You know, my first question to all of you, maybe starting off with Stephen here, is how do you see technology such as AI when it comes to security? You know, do you think there's a security issue or vulnerability that might happen?
Well, thank you. I think that's a very, very important question. And I think the way we think about it, I think coming from Skylab, we pride ourselves to be a digital performance company. And what we really mean by that is our mission in life really is to be, you know, the company that is able to optimize the delivery of content, applications, and data for mission-critical applications. Now, what do we even mean by that? And then alluding back to what I was mentioning earlier, the quality of the data is very paramount, because that ultimately, in the first instance, helps you train up your AI model. And then subsequently, those data also helps you or your AI model make certain decisions based on those input. So the integrity of those data is paramount. I think the way we think about it is, as in all things logistics, you want to make sure that whenever the data comes from the source, be it a sensor, be it equipment, be it a database, you want to have a very high assurance that the data, when it gets to you, is intact. I mean, you don't want it to be, you know, as you mentioned earlier, somebody has done something to it. It's just like when you buy a delivery package. When the package comes to you, you want to make sure whatever you've ordered is what it is. You don't want somebody adding on to it. I think for us now, I think we're spending a lot of time and effort, and we have developed IPs around it, products, just to make sure that that part is being done up correctly. And because that is very fundamental to us. And once the data the right quality of data, secure data gets to the back end, then obviously you can make better decisions with it, you can train better models with it, and that ultimately, as far as the ecosystem goes, will then assure, in my mind, you know, the quality and output coming out from AI. Yeah.
Well, that is a good, precise insights on how to manage the data, data management, and also the AI process. But again, coming back to the security portion of things, Andrew, you know, in Singapore, our healthcare system somewhat got leaked or hacked, you know. So do you think, you know, with your platform, with your, maybe your AI works that is done within your company, do you think that can stop or reduce vulnerabilities like this? Andrew.
Thanks for that question. And actually, certainly, because of the several incidences that have happened in the healthcare data space, security is paramount, right? And these incidents happened before we started Meshbio, focusing on structuring data, employing analytics AI to give clinical decision support. Now, I think even before we started, right, we really thought about the security implications and security requirements. And very frequently, unfortunately, typically the weakest link in data security is the human, is the person, right? Having protocols behind securing data transfer, even on a USB, right? How you set up your passwords, whether 2FA is involved, encryption of data at rest, and encryption of data when they are being transferred over API. These are all critical items, critical protocols that have to be in place, especially when we're dealing with sensitive data that pertains to an individual's health. And as I mentioned, I think one thing that is very important for anyone working in this space with healthcare data is adequate training of staff and adequate vigilance, right? Because training is a moment in time, but how do we ensure that the team, the staff, and even all the partners who are handling the data and transferring the data for analysis are cognizant about the security implications, and that we continue to take periodic audits of how the security protocols continue to be adhered to and continue to be maintained.
That's good insights as well, Andrew. But my take would be, well, since human being might not be the most trusted form of form of form, in this equation, do you or do we then trust more in the coding? I give you an example. Again, coming back to the blockchain blood that I have in me, do you then think decentralized model or protocol like blockchain is going to make a difference? This question will go to Andrew first, and then Sri will help to answer as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I think blockchain has a huge potential. Certainly, its first application is in fintech, and numerous healthcare organizations, both private and public, are exploring the opportunities of blockchain to ensure that the data is immutable. Right, so it's not just about accessing the data; it's actually changing the data that could actually influence how the physician interprets this information and delivers care. So, but I think healthcare tends to move slowly, and it's not just about adoption of new technology, but it's ensuring that any new technology that's being implemented in care delivery is not just secure, but also leads to efficacy and safety in care. So there are these other considerations, right? But yeah, we have seen numerous blockchain initiatives in this case around patient records.
So, Sri, what about you from your perspective on AI security and blockchain?
Okay. So the blockchain in terms as a middleware is very good. And I appreciate the kind of privacy that you use is enormously great to understand the data to do the business on it. But the most important thing here would be the access of the data, the source of the data that's coming from. So, for example, it could be various interfaces that comes from. Those interfaces where it comes from has to be the right source. So it has to be reliable there. And of course, when it's synchronized with and references with the data, the blockchain technology is surely good. But when it comes to sources, we need to have right kind of sources. So where I say we belong to a platform called visual recognition, where the camera becomes the main source. A voice could be another source. A data from fintech coming from an online platform, a cloud, could be synchronized to data of blockchain technology, where that becomes your middle core level to reference the data on. But the source is important where it comes from. That's very important as a data input coming from. If that comes from a right source, then marginalizing and getting these data encrypted and then getting the right kind of decision making would be the next level of access to be taken. Can be done through blockchain activities or other various security parameters.
Thank you, Sri. Thank you. For the AI industry, when you read at some reports and so forth, in about 7 years' time, it's going to be a $700 billion industry. All right. In my humble opinion, it should be bigger, way bigger for AI. And I do also believe that there are quite a number of participants online right now. They are professional investors. There are people who are looking at entering the AI market, or even going into the deep learning, deep tech kind of market, With that kind of big money that is projected to come in the next 5 to 7 years down the road, starting off with Stephen, what do you think is the best way for people who wants to get into this AI industry, look at, what industry in particular do you think AI is going to fit best and work best in the next 5 years, maybe?
Well, thank you. I think that's a very profound question. I think from my perspective, being in the industry for a while, I think the fundamental point is we need to understand what the pain point is. We need to understand what we're trying to solve. I think AI, if you think about it, is a, perhaps put simply, is an automated way of taking away some of those, maybe mundane decision making that humans, as you rightly point out, might have a certain bias or failure in doing. Right? So, for example, in the medical world, looking at hundreds of, X-rays, can they make a better decision there? So I think for anyone wanting to go into AI, I think fundamentally they need to choose an industry, as you rightly pointed out, and then they have to become a subject matter expert, because they shouldn't become a solution looking for a problem. There must be a real problem out there that needs to be solved. And problems always comes probably in one or two forms. I think traditionally in a smart city, smart building space, which has been going on for the longest time. I've been involved in it maybe for the last 20 odd years. The question is, apart from reducing energy usage, optimizing the operations, reducing costs, etc., those are important behaviors. But then the question becomes, can we make use of the latest technology, maybe in AI, to create new business model, to create new value-adding kind of activities? And in order to get there, you really need to understand the industry. And I always like to joke that, don't keep trying to invent a bigger, better mousetrap. We need to clearly define where the mouse is, or for that matter, is the mouse getting bigger? Or for that matter, if there's no more mouse there, then why are we even building the bigger, better mousetrap? So I think the domain has to be very, very important. And I think I would encourage, tech is only an enabler, be it blockchain, IoT, edge cloud, AI. It is an enabler that is supposed to provide some value-adding activities. I think the value-adding part is, I think, where us as humans should really play a part in here. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Andrew, do you have some insights on that as well? Where investors should maybe put their money in, or where the job seekers or tech wannabes, where do you think they should lie? What's next?
Oh, you're asking me for a crystal ball. But maybe firstly, I want to really support what Stephen mentioned. I think the word artificial intelligence has become too much of a buzzword, right? Fundamentally, it's about tools, right? Tools that can make our lives better, reduce inefficiency, help us make smarter decisions, help us live better, right? Either more efficient lives in our workplace, or a more efficient clinical decision making that can lead to improved patient outcomes. So the paramount problem the paramount thought process that investors should think about is, which is an area that we see has the greatest amount of problems, right? I mean, we know that healthcare is a multi-trillion-dollar industry globally, and in order to and has a multitude of challenges, right? Of course, challenges around care delivery, challenges around drug development. We start to see people using artificial intelligence to develop new and better, more efficacious drugs. The AI isn't the product. The drug is the product, right? Better therapeutics is the product. And the AI is a tool that together with humans, together with molecular biologists, cancer doctors, cardiac doctors, to bring that human understanding together with that machine insights, right, in order to derive better solutions, and in this case, drugs, right? And of course, in our space, it's about ingesting very complex data and removing some of this friction to assessing this data so that the doctor can make an easier decision. So back to Stephen's earlier point, it really looks at, it's about identifying industries that their investors believe have the greatest potential for transformation. Some people call it disruption, but I guess in healthcare, for me personally, disruption is not such a great word, because you don't want to disrupt the healthcare system, right? That leads to uncertainty, and that can impact patients' outcomes. We want transformation, safe, secure, efficacious transformation that impacts patients' lives.
Well, I think healthcare should be more transparent, but that would be a different segment altogether. Sri, what about you from your end?
Okay, I really appreciate my fellow panelists like Stephen and Andrew spoke about it. It is right. It is the focus that's important. It's the domain expertise that they want to get into. It is business specification which you want to get into. It can be healthcare industry, it could be infrastructure, it could be logistics, and so on and so forth. But as we say, AI is a facilitator. It's not an industry by itself. So it helps all the industries, all the verticals, you name it on. Every vertical has nuances. They need the help on decision-making capabilities. They need the data to be referred. They need data to be analyzed and take a predictive cognitive learning aspect on it. And based on that, give you a substantial help on decision capability. If decision-making capabilities are there, that's where you have the nuances coming in for. It can be an autonomous car. The car helps you to drive or tells you that you are overstressed or you're drunk. Or it could be a logistic delivery provider, as Christine was saying, that I get the right parcel in my hand, which I've ordered on. I need to track it real time. and that happens. What I have ordered is what I get. So these are various industries which we look into, and these are important for us as an AI facilitating body. Focus on the vertical which is important and which the investor or the entrepreneur wants to get into, and his domain expertise or richness of experience which he needs to put into that to understand how AI can implement that there. That is important. That's my view.
Yeah, and that is a very practical view as well. From a technologist myself, I do see the importance of AI. But again, during our conversation right at this moment, for people who are not very much into the technology space, they might then think, hey man, these four guys are talking about something that is very hyped up, and to be real honest, things like a big data, the hype is already gone. Yeah, the normal cloud computing is gone as well. But the strange thing is for AI, artificial intelligence, the longevity is there, man. It's like ever going.
Absolutely.
It is there for the past 5 years at least as a main buzzword and so forth. Is it because it's too profound for people to understand, or do you think it's more of a situation where adoption rate is relatively low as compared to some of the other tech that we have seen? What do you think?
In fact, that's a very good observation. I think the way I think about it is AI, simply put, is an extension of the human mind, if I kind of think of it that way. As what Andrew mentioned, is to help us make better decisions, take away some of our cognitive biases, and then hopefully when in under times of stress or when you need to do something that very repetitively, then this kind of helps out along the way. And I would like to think that for us humans, it's important to define the right problem. I always remember someone once tell me, what happens when you solve the wrong problem perfectly? You get a perfectly wrong answer, right? So the question is, with AI, we can potentially get the perfectly wrong answer because of whatever data we feed in. It comes to a solution, but then that might not answer the question that we have. So I think the longevity comes from the fact that we're constantly evolving ourselves to say, can we find a better model to help us make better decisions for all kind of purposes?
I guess in the conversation itself, it seems that there's still a little bit of a trust issue, with the technology. And again, it goes back to the health sector. Healthcare is extremely important. And again, we have seen a lot of different kind of
let me just go to another computer.
Many different kind of sharing sessions where they will talk about AI is going to take over surgery processes. AI is going to make doctors' lives easier. And again, some of them, they might think that
let me just try my laptop and see, because this is my desktop.
Do you really think that's going to happen, Andrew?
I have my jacket actually. I actually have my jacket.
There's some DJ going on here.
I think it was a configuration from my end. I cannot see the background.
I actually couldn't hear the last few statements because of the interference.
So what does he need to do?
Okay, yeah, I think that the
All right, you're back, man.
Yeah, okay. Okay, could you repeat the last statement?
I hope that's not AI though.
So
That's certainly human.
Yeah. So the last statement is fairly straightforward, just pertaining to the healthcare industry. Do you think AI is going to take away some of the jobs that are available? Is things are going to be so intelligent where someone walks into an X-ray machine or MRI room and everything is just fully automated? The robots tell you what to do. The pre-programmed AI structure is going to tell you what to do next and so forth. Do you think that is going to happen, replacing human being, man?
To be honest, I think it's going to be about job transformation. I know it's a politically correct thing to say that AI is about job transformation and not job replacement, but I think that's actually the truth, right? So let's take about the example about imaging. Previously, it was always radiologists or physicians interpreting images versus the robot. And what we've come to understand is that robots have limitations. And in fact, if you put the patient at the center, right? Physicians interpreting the images with the assistance of the robot increases the AUC, area under the curve. It's what we think about in healthcare from as the performance of a robot from like 90% to 95, 97%, right? Which means that errors dramatically reduce more than threefold. So I think from our perspective, AI has the potential to transform jobs. I think one of the most influential books that has come out in this space is AI Superpower by Li Kai-fu. And even then, he's espousing that AI has the opportunity to remove these mundane, repetitive tasks for us to make our work more human, right? To free up more time to appreciate the ones around us and the interactions that we have between our colleagues, between ourselves and customers, between doctors and patients. You mentioned earlier this topic about trust as well, and that is certainly a very important and one of the top issues about adoption of AI in healthcare, right? Because there's this issue about explainability, and I just want to highlight that literally just last week, there was an international consortium working on AI in medicine has just published their consensus statement about how to validate AI and the level of evidence that AI developers have to show as part of their clinical trials. And this was just, you can search for it online, it just came out in Nature Medicine just last week. And so the entire community, not just developers, but physicians and even corporate stakeholders, right? Corporations developing AIs are certainly thinking about how this entire community can move forward in a safe and efficacious way to achieve our objectives.
All right. Then for Sri, this since we talk so much about AI and so forth, and still the adoption rate is relatively lower. So do you think it's a matter of cost? Is a matter of mindset? What's your view?
It's my view was predominantly just a dominant nation stage, of course, in terms of mastery. AI has been for the last 3 decades, but it's more towards the MITs and the technology institutions making more of advancements to understand it. But from a commoner to understand what AI is, you need to implement it in many of the scenarios. Now, of course, people know about breakthrough tracking, people know about cognitive learning if you're going for facial recognition, X, Y, Z. But it is also AI is also used in healthcare, wherein I give you a couple of examples like. We did a project in Charity Hospital in Germany, wherein a visual-based AI was used to understand the dermatological advancement. So a camera could now tell you what is the first level understanding of the skin. So a doctor or a dermatologist could tell you what is the allergy is there based on analyzing the AI interpretation of it. It means that there has to be a knowledge transfer done from the system to the humans. And humans, of course, have to supervise it, saying it's right and wrong. The decision still lies with the humans, but it gives you adaptive learning and that it learns by itself. So you're getting to a question which you asked me, the adaptability on a mass is going to take some time to understand how it's going to happen, how the feasibility is going to work on. So when you start improvising, putting the same element of AI in every aspect of life, as you know, on a blockchain, you have been a master in blockchain, and when you know that this blockchain can be used for various technology for encryption of data or probably security of data, it can be logistics, it could be medical. Yes, it is possible for people to understand. People talk about only SOX compliance or Basel compliance, which are traditional compliance of security levels in banking. So those things have to come and face. So AI adaptivity for next 5 years, if you would say, would increase in average 10 to 12% every year. So 5 years from now, you would have people knowing about AI more than what they are knowing it now, which we knew it probably 10 years back. So that would be the transformation next. And it's rapidly growing as we talk now. That's my view.
All right. Let me try to sum up everything and also give some quick take-home pointers for everybody. As a futurist, as a technologist, as a investor myself, what I do really see from this conversation today, in this afternoon, is that AI, deep tech, deep learning, blockchain, even cryptocurrency and so forth, they are all just an enabler to what we already have. You know, the only biggest value that can come out from all the different technology for us and for our future is to put the right technology at the right place at the right time and use the business to grow the technology. And that would be the way ahead for all of us. And I really do hope to see more implementation of AI, especially in the ASEAN market. And we also hope to see more technology or high-tech technology flow into Singapore and make Singapore a better hub. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for being here. And of course, I would like to thank CABA to be hosting this event, Chonghua, Asman, and so forth. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care of yourself, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you to all panelists for that very insightful